Hi, I'm Rebecca, and I'm about to give you the real reason why you can't focus in this era of AI, overstimulation, and endless digital noise. But by the end of this video, I'm going to show you some powerful shifts on how you'll have a very clear and grounded way to regain your time, up to probably about 15 hours, your clarity, and your ability to lead with intention again. So let me first tell you who this is for, because ultimately this is not for everybody. I wish I could save the world from overstimulation and everything else, but this is for the woman that built the thing. She got the clients, the revenue, a full calendar, and yet somehow she feels further from herself than ever before. Her days are full of tabs, tasks, team check-ins, Slack pings, half-written posts, half-processed ideas, and no real space to think. She's smart. She's intuitive, and she's deeply capable. But she started questioning her own attention span. She started wondering if she was the problem and if maybe she just needed to try harder to focus in the chaos. But here's the truth. No, darling, you're not broken. Your brain is not failing you. There's not something wrong here. You're just wired to survive, and you're meant to lead. And there's a difference with that. When you're meant to lead, you have to understand how your survival mechanisms sometimes avoid that leap. So in this video, I'm going to show you how we actually scale that leap. And here we go. We're going to dive right in. So most women that I work with at this stage don't have a too small team problem. So most women that I work with at this stage don't have a too small of a team problem. They have a too fragile of a business problem. But let me explain before you start reacting at that, because this is a really important thing. You can delegate tasks, but not outcomes. You can hire support, but still have to feel like this feeling of staying in control of every detail. So nothing truly runs without you. And here's what's really going on. You still identify probably as the woman that has to do it all. And while we might be the woman that we have to do it all out there, in your office, in your domain, in your agency, you don't want to equate control with quality. You don't want to tell yourself it's easier if I just do it. That is actually a martyr CEO loop. And it places you in this cul-de-sac of, and when you're in this place, you just kind of keep going around and doing the same thing over and over again. Now, if you're really listening to me and you're really thinking about this, and I want you to take a minute to reflect, because if you really start to pause and consider about some of the problems that you're solving and some of the things and how you're doing it, you realize it's silently draining your business of time, trust, and scalability. Because scaling in any capacity is never neat. It's never perfect. But hiring without systems is like duct taping chaos. And that's what we're about to fix. So if you want to free up time without hiring a big team, there are 3 foundational areas to actually delegate to give you immediate ROI. And we're going to focus on those today. But this doesn't even matter if you have one VA or a contractor for like 5 hours a week. It doesn't matter which version you're at. The whole purpose of this is to understand, though, instead, we're going to stop this cycle of perfectionism or over control. And that is actually a layer of 2 saboteurs that I'm not even touching right now, but it's something to consider in the ways that it's insidiously growing inside of your business. Because once you can identify that you've built a business, probably in survival, you probably built the business because you needed to build the business. And now you're still running the business as though you are running in survival. And we have to shift those pieces, because as soon as we do, you start to actually scale because you think like a visionary leader. And in order to think like a visionary leader, I want you just to look at your calendar. Where is your 90 minutes of thinking strategy time? Where's this space? And this is the biggest thing that we shift. So I'm going to start with that. Your calendar doesn't sound like something that is actually going to be a big lift, but your daily admin and your calendar follow-ups can free up nearly 5 hours per week. So it's not that you're not stuck because of one big problem, and you're not going to pick that one big problem out and fix the entire week, okay? We're stuck because we have 100 little interruptions. The email replies, the calendar pings, the payment follow-up, the reschedule ping pong, a game that I seriously do not like, missed reminders, the micro decisions. These are robbing your strategic brain, because each time you open up a loop inside of your brain, whether it's on your phone, talking to somebody else on the phone, tending to plants or doing housework, your brain opens that up because it wants to optimize the way that it's functioning. Your brain is literally created to use the least amount of energy for the maximum amount of results. And your brain does that because purely of survival. But what we have to understand is that every time we open our phone, every time we start to another conversation, our brain is still working on that, whether you're thinking about it or not. And so we need to start to delegate the calendar management, the client scheduling, the things that we can control. And so I want you to think about the Zoom links, the auto reminders, the soft lead follow-ups, and hey, I'd really love to get back together with you. Hi, just reminding you. Those things are chasers that are not the kind that are actually going to solve anything. And so we want to create a shift of how to actually do this. And I'm going to keep this really, really simple, because I think that sometimes when you're watching a YouTube video and you're just trying to fix something because you see the value in it, then you want the solution nearly immediately. And I totally get that. I suggest using something like Notion or a task calendar so that you can actually see all the tasks that your team has. I want you to loom your current process in rescheduling somebody. I want you to loom your current process in going back and forth in the client ping pong, what you say, how you say it. I want you to think about the ways that you reply and capture those reply styles. Write down a simple SOP. When X happens, do Y. And train your VA to own the outcome and step back. Now, here's the thing. I want you to ask your identity, because your identity is going to step in. Your identity is going to challenge you to change. And she's going to try and tell you that it's not going to be perfect. And so I want you to think about, when your identity comes in, asking this question: can you let someone else do it their way, even if it's 90% of your standard? Because, my dear, that is real leadership. That is true leadership. That is calling up every single person around you in a way where they get to evolve, they get to expand their horizons, they get to understand something with more depth, and they like to own that. High performers, especially high performer hires, will not stick around if you're not giving them the ability to grow. And I want you to really understand that, because you wouldn't stick around if somebody said, no, it's fine, I'll just do it. You get dejected little by little, and you lose great employees that way. And so if you have somebody that is fantastic, that's along next to you, it's a wonderful opportunity to start with something small, but have something that is scalable, because 5 hours a week is pretty substantial. Next, I want you to think about your client onboarding. Now, this can buy back around 2 to 4 hours per client. So depending upon how frequently you're onboarding a client, I really want you to think about the way that setting up a new client sets off a domino of manual tasks. I want you to think about the welcome email, the contracts, the forms, the reminders, the payments, the Slack invite, the links that you have to customize. And if you're doing that all by hand, you're not scaling, you're babysitting. And so here's what we want to delegate. We want to delegate an automated onboarding sequence. Think GHL, Flowdesk, anything like that that you are going to utilize. I want you to think of having a branded welcome PDF or Loom walkthrough of actually what to look for and what those clients need held within. I want you to think about the intake forms that push directly into your CRM or Notion, and make sure that all of those things are actually seen and tested. You see it, you test it, and it's done. You're doing it once. You want to share those folders and templates with everything that they need, and then a what to expect document to actually reduce those hand holdings, especially for the first couple of weeks. Create it once, use it forever. You'll iterate, you'll adjust, but here's the thing: loom the entire process once. Let your VA systematize it. If you're thinking to yourself, gosh, I don't have the time to create a PDF and map out this whole process and actually take them through. No, 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 no. Stop over owning all the things. Release it and let your VA systematize it. It will give you so much peace. You will have so much more energy. It is actually incredible, because if you really stop to think about it, when your loops are opening in something that just grinds your gears and agitates you, I want you to understand that each time you do that, it shifts your fatigue into a deeper level. That's why you end up at the end of the day being exhausted. It's not necessarily doing the things that you love to do that light you up, because that's your genius zone. That's where you're in your power, my dear. And we want you in that space as much as possible. So what you love to do and what lights you up is something that I really want you to think about, so that you are building in that trajectory where you're doing the most of that. Next, I want you to repurpose your existing content and say toodaloo to your content fatigue, because you don't need more content. You need more mileage out of what you've already created. So I'm actually going to show you an example of a funnel YouTube build out that actually shows the experience of what I'm actually talking about. So let me just show you this. So this is a YouTube organic funnel. And what we did was, is for a client of ours, we start with a pretty understanding goal. We're all very clear on what this goal actually is. What we want to get out of it, what the content funnel strategy actually is, and each of the layers of how this actually builds out from a goal perspective. I'm not trying to move this, I'm trying to highlight this so you can actually see. And then there are even playlist ideas and weekly content schedules. And so each time that client builds out one of those YouTubes, what we do then is we actually splice up and feature those as reels. So, I mean, that is something that just transforms this understanding of content, because instead of chasing this constant, never-ending fuel, this is another example, and instead of chasing...
But law school did not feel like success. It was survival. While my classmates typed away on their brightly colored MacBooks, I had to handwrite my notes because I couldn't afford one. While all my friends were out drinking and partying, I was working 3 jobs.
So this gives you a really good idea of the type of content that then comes out of a speaking event or a YouTube situation or something of the like that actually allows you to scale. Because ultimately what's happening is we are so ambitious that you probably have built things when you were on fire. And so the business probably relies on your personality, your creativity, your energy in order for everything to actually run smoothly. And so your systems aren't actually set up to scale and your delivery is still really manual. So you're probably having these processes that are living in your head and then snapping a reel occasionally when you have the time. In other words, your current business structure literally is capping your growth in a way that's trapping you in a cycle of hustle and exhaustion. And so when you understand that these are the things that are happening, this is how you actually start to shift the frame, because you then are able to take this raw file, create these timestamps and key moments, and cue the content so that that particular reel gets spliced up. Now, I know what you're thinking. I know you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't have a speaking event set up and I don't know where to go with that, or I don't want to be on YouTube. And I fully understand. But here's the thing, that's not actually an objection. That's actually an opportunity, because a 3-minute video can be split up into 6+ assets if you stop being the one repurposing it from scratch. And so here's how you do it. You actually will open up a Zoom and you'll click record, and you will record yourself with a pre-mapped out script that actually highlights a variety of pieces that correlate to a carousel post, 2 reels, 3 stories, and if you are really put together, an email newsletter or a LinkedIn post. Now, how do you do that? You store the raw video after you've taken it in Zoom and you pop it into Google Drive. You use the template that you have the process for inside of Notion. So you'd have to build out a process similar to what I just showed you inside of Notion. And then build a workflow. Have that video with the timestamps and the content queue. And the result is that you stay visible online without living in Canva at 11 p.m. at night. So this isn't about outsourcing content creation. This is about releasing the belief that it only works if you're the voice, the editor, the poster, the scheduler, the engager, all the things. So in order for you to actually scale, you have to stop overusing your body. And you have to start leaning on some other people. If you're going to run 100 miles in a day, you have to understand what's actually scalable for you specifically. So here's the bottom line. You don't need a full team. You don't need an ops manager, project coordinator, content strategist. You actually don't even need to hire anybody. You probably already have a part-time VA or trusted contractor. You need to create a couple of looms and instructions. And most importantly, the self-trust to step out of the middle. Because delegation isn't about giving away tasks, my dear. It's about becoming somebody who no longer needs to be essential to everything. And that's the shift. So here's where it all comes together. When you install a system that works, there's a shift where you go from reactive and overloaded to systematized and spacious. Inside of our 90-day program, we do that. We help people actually install, mapping out your core offer, your delivery path, your back-end systems, your onboarding and fulfillment, and your lead generation, along with real dashboards, clean SOPs for delegation, and emotional unhooking from I have to do it all. But that's part automation, part identity work, because no system is ever going to save your mindset if your mindset is not willing to release control. And how you shift that is you start leading from a place of strategy and not survival. So our clients actually free up about 15 to 20 hours per week without hiring a massive team or turning into an ops manager. And that's key because they stop over functioning, they start actually leading. And they think to themselves, gosh, why am I in such I have so much more energy, or I took space to actually take a break and I feel really rejuvenated around that. That's really powerful. So if you're watching this and thinking, I don't want to work like this anymore, that's not laziness, that's wisdom. Don't feel badly about it. Recognize the difference of what it is. You didn't build your business to become its assistant. You built it to create freedom. It's time to step into that. So if you click the link below, and if this is speaking to you, I'd love to walk you through how this could look inside of your business, because what we do is we audit what's actually eating up your time and where your systems are leaking. And we'll show you how to free up those hours each week really fast, because it's not about doing more. It's about being somebody who no longer has to. So let's reclaim your time and your life, my dear, because that's really important. And this is where we make it rain.